Marcus Rodriguez wiped the sweat from his brow as he locked up the small jiu-jitsu academy in downtown Los Angeles. The year was 1995, and the martial art was still finding its footing in America, thanks largely to the recent success of Royce Gracie in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Marcus had been one of the early adopters, traveling to Brazil in the late 80s to train under the legendary Helio Gracie himself. The academy barely kept him afloat financially. Most Americans still preferred boxing or karate, viewing jiu-jitsu as some exotic foreign fighting style. Marcus charged what he could afford to lose students, often teaching kids from the neighborhood for free when their parents couldn't pay. His worn gi told the story of countless hours on the mat, patches covering tears that he couldn't afford to replace. The evening air was thick with the usual Los Angeles smog as Marcus walked toward his beat-up Honda Civic. His black belt, earned through years of dedication and sacrifice, was wrapped carefully in his gym bag along with his few other possessions. He had turned down several offers to teach at more upscale gyms in Beverly Hills, preferring to stay in his community where he felt he could make a real difference. As he turned into the narrow alley where he parked his car, Marcus heard the unmistakable sounds of a struggle. 3 men in expensive suits had cornered someone against the brick wall of the adjacent building. The victim was well dressed, his silver hair gleaming under the single streetlight. Even in the dim lighting, Marcus could see the fear in the older man's eyes. "Just give us the briefcase." "Old man, and nobody gets hurt," one of the attackers demanded, his voice carrying a threatening edge. Marcus hesitated for only a moment. His martial arts training had taught him that fighting should always be a last resort, but his moral compass wouldn't allow him to walk away from someone in need. He approached slowly, his hands visible and non-threatening. "Gentlemen, there's no need for this," Marcus said calmly, his voice carrying the confidence that came from years of training. "Why don't we all just walk away and forget this happened?" The 3 men turned toward him, sizing up this unexpected interruption. They were clearly not professional criminals, more likely desperate men who had made a poor decision. The leader, a man in his 30s with nervous energy, laughed harshly. "Walk away, hero. This doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does," Marcus replied, stepping closer. "See, I teach people to protect themselves, and part of that job means I can't just watch someone get hurt when I can do something about it." The situation escalated quickly. The leader pulled out a knife while his companions moved to flank Marcus. The older gentleman pressed himself further against the wall, clutching his briefcase tightly. Marcus could see the man was in his 60s, well-groomed despite the circumstances, wearing what appeared to be a very expensive watch and suit. "I really don't want to hurt anyone," Marcus said, dropping into a subtle fighting stance. "But I'm not walking away either." The first attacker lunged with the knife, but Marcus had been expecting it. Years of training had honed his reflexes to near perfection. He stepped to the side, grabbed the man's wrist, and used a simple jiu-jitsu technique to disarm him. The knife clattered across the alley floor as the man found himself on the ground. Marcus's arm wrapped around his neck in a rear naked choke. The other 2 attackers hesitated, clearly not expecting their victim to have a trained protector. Marcus applied just enough pressure to make the first attacker tap out, then released him and stood up slowly. "Your friend is fine," Marcus said to the remaining 2 men. "But I suggest you all leave now before someone calls the police." The 3 men looked at each other, then at Marcus, and apparently decided that whatever was in the briefcase wasn't worth tangling with someone who clearly knew how to fight. They helped their dazed companion to his feet and disappeared into the night, leaving Marcus alone with the man he had just saved. The older gentleman straightened his tie and smoothed down his silver hair, his hands still trembling slightly from the encounter. He looked at Marcus with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity, clearly trying to process what had just happened. "Thank you," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that Marcus couldn't quite place. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. Anyone would have done the same thing. "No," the man said firmly, extending his hand. "Not everyone would have risked their safety for a stranger." "I'm William Ashford." Marcus shook the offered hand, noting the firm grip despite the man's age. "Marcus Rodriguez. Are you hurt? Do you need me to call someone?" William glanced around the alley nervously, still clutching his briefcase. "I should call my driver, but my phone—" He patted his pockets frantically. "They must have taken it during the struggle." "You can use the phone in my academy," Marcus offered, gesturing toward the building. "It's just right here." As they walked back toward the academy, William studied Marcus with intelligent eyes. "You handled yourself remarkably well back there. That wasn't luck or street fighting." You have real training. Marcus unlocked the academy door and flipped on the lights, revealing a modest space with worn mats covering most of the floor. Motivational posters in both English and Portuguese decorated the walls, along with photos of Marcus with various Brazilian jiu-jitsu masters. A small office area in the corner contained an old desk and a rotary phone. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Marcus explained, leading William to the phone. I spent several years in Brazil learning from the Gracie family. William's eyes widened as he took in the academy. Despite its humble appearance, everything was meticulously clean and organized. The mats showed signs of heavy use but were well maintained. Trophy cases displayed modest awards from local tournaments, and a schedule on the wall showed classes running from early morning until late evening. Fascinating, William murmured, setting his briefcase down carefully. I've heard of the Gracies, of course. Weren't they the ones whose student won that new fighting tournament in Denver? Royce Gracie? Yes, Marcus replied, pleased that William knew about the UFC. He's actually the smallest of the fighting Gracies, but technique beats strength every time. William dialed a number and spoke quietly into the phone, arranging for his driver to pick him up. While he waited, he wandered around the academy, examining the photos and certificates on the walls. Marcus noticed him pausing at a particular photo showing Marcus receiving his black belt from Helio Gracie himself. How long have you been teaching here? William asked. About 3 years, Marcus replied. I came back from Brazil in 1992 and opened this place. It's been challenging. Most people don't understand what jiu-jitsu is really about. William nodded thoughtfully. And what is it really about? Marcus considered the question seriously. It's about leverage, technique, and mental chess. It's the art of using someone's strength against them. But more than that, it teaches humility. On the mat, your ego gets checked real quick. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, big or small. The mat doesn't lie. The mat doesn't lie, William repeated, clearly intrigued by the phrase. I like that. A black sedan pulled up outside, its headlights cutting through the academy's front windows. William gathered his briefcase and moved toward the door, but paused before leaving. Marcus, I meant what I said about gratitude, what you did tonight. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. I'd like to repay your kindness somehow. Marcus glanced at the card. The elegant script read, Ashford Industries, with William's name and a Beverly Hills address. He had heard of Ashford Industries, a real estate development company that had been making headlines for their innovative commercial projects throughout Southern California. You don't owe me anything, Marcus said sincerely. I'm just glad you're safe. William studied Marcus for a long moment. You know, I've built my career on recognizing potential and character. Tonight you showed me both. He paused at the door. Would you mind if I stopped by again sometime? I'd like to learn more about this jiu-jitsu philosophy. Marcus was surprised by the request, but nodded. You're welcome anytime. I teach beginner classes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. As William's sedan disappeared into the night, Marcus looked down at the business card in his hand. He had no idea that the man he had just saved was worth over $50 million, or that their chance encounter would change both of their lives forever. 2 weeks passed before Marcus saw William again. Life at the academy continued its predictable rhythm. Early morning classes with dedicated students, afternoon sessions with local kids whose parents worked long hours, and evening classes for adults trying to learn self-defense or get in shape. Marcus never mentioned the alley incident to anyone, treating it as just another night in Los Angeles. On a Thursday evening, as Marcus was demonstrating a basic guard pass to his beginner class, he noticed a familiar figure standing in the doorway. William Ashford wore casual clothes for the first time Marcus had seen him, sporting khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. He waited patiently until the class ended before approaching. I hope I'm not interrupting, William said, as the last student gathered their gear and headed for the door. Not at all, Marcus replied. Genuinely pleased to see him. How are you feeling? Any lingering effects from that night? William shook his head. Physically, I'm fine. Mentally, it's been interesting. I keep thinking about what you said, about the mat not lying. I've spent most of my adult life in boardrooms where everyone tells me what they think I want to hear. Marcus began rolling up the mats, a nightly ritual that kept the academy tidy and extended the life of his equipment. The mat's different. You can't negotiate with physics or leverage. Either the technique works or it doesn't. That's what I was hoping you'd say, William said, then surprised Marcus completely. I'd like to train here, if you'll have me. Marcus paused in his mat rolling. You want to learn jiu-jitsu? I've been thinking about it since that night. I'm 62 years old, Marcus. I've built a successful business, accumulated wealth, surrounded myself with people who depend on me for their livelihood. But when those men cornered me in that alley, I was completely helpless. I didn't like that feeling. Marcus studied William's face, looking for signs of a passing fancy or wealthy man's whim. Instead, he saw genuine determination and perhaps a hint of vulnerability that wealth couldn't protect against. It's not easy, Marcus warned. Jiu-jitsu humbles everyone who steps on the mat. Age, money, status. None of that matters when you're learning to defend yourself. Good, William replied without hesitation. I think I need some humbling. Over the following weeks, William proved to be unlike any student Marcus had ever taught. He arrived punctually for every beginner class, dressed in a simple white gi that he had purchased at Marcus's recommendation. He listened intently to instruction, asked thoughtful questions, and never complained about the physical demands of training. The other students initially seemed intimidated by William's presence, somehow sensing that he was different despite his modest behavior on the mat. But jiu-jitsu has a way of equalizing people, and soon William was just another white belt struggling to master basic techniques alongside teenagers and working-class adults. Marcus watched with growing respect as William absorbed defeat after defeat on the mat. During sparring sessions, much younger and stronger opponents would submit him repeatedly, yet William never showed frustration or entitlement. He would tap out, reset, and try again, treating each defeat as a learning opportunity. You're a natural student, Marcus told him after one particularly challenging class. Most people your age would have quit by now. William was toweling off sweat, looking exhausted but satisfied. In business, I'm used to being the expert, the one with answers. This is refreshing, being a beginner again. It reminds me what learning actually feels like. As weeks turned into months, William became a regular fixture at the academy. He arrived early to help Marcus set up mats and stayed late to ask questions about technique. His presence began attracting attention from other wealthy individuals in Los Angeles who were curious about what had captured William Ashford's interest so completely. Marcus noticed the changes in William beyond just his improving jiu-jitsu skills. The businessman seemed more relaxed, less concerned with maintaining his image, and more focused on genuine interaction with people. He developed friendships with other students, including several teenagers from the neighborhood who initially viewed him with suspicion. One evening, after an especially intense training session, William approached Marcus with a serious expression. I need to tell you something, William said, settling onto a bench near the edge of the mat. That night in the alley, those men weren't random muggers. They knew who I was, and they were specifically targeting me because of a business deal that went wrong. Marcus sat down beside him, waiting for William to continue. I've been in real estate development for 30 years, William explained. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions that affect people's livelihoods. Those men had lost their jobs when I closed a project that wasn't financially viable. They blamed me for their problems. Did you do anything illegal? Marcus asked directly. No, but that doesn't mean I didn't hurt people. Business is often about choosing the least bad option, not the perfect one. William looked around the academy, taking in the modest surroundings that had become so important to him. Training here has made me think differently about those choices. 6 months after their first meeting, Marcus had grown accustomed to William's presence at the academy. The older man had progressed steadily, earning his first stripe on his white belt and developing a solid understanding of basic jiu-jitsu principles. More importantly, he had become a valued member of the academy's small community. On a quiet Tuesday evening, after the last class had ended, William asked Marcus to sit with him for a serious conversation. The academy felt different in the silence, with only the hum of the old air conditioning unit and distant traffic sounds filtering through the windows. Marcus, I need to be completely honest with you about something, William began, his voice carrying an unusual weight. I've been investigating what happened that night in the alley, and I discovered something troubling. Marcus set down the belt he had been organizing and gave William his full attention. Those 3 men who attacked me lost their jobs when I shut down a construction project in East Los Angeles. It was a low-income housing development that would have provided affordable homes for families in that community. William paused, clearly struggling with what he was about to reveal. I cancelled the project because my investors wanted higher returns, and affordable housing wasn't profitable enough. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus felt a complex mix of emotions as he processed this information. He had spent months training alongside William, watching him grow not just as a martial artist, but as a person who seemed to genuinely care about others. How many families would have been housed? Marcus asked quietly. 200 units, probably around 500 people, including children. William's voice was barely above a whisper. I told myself it was just business, that I couldn't be responsible for every social problem in Los Angeles. But training here, getting to know the people in this community, has changed my perspective. Marcus stood up and walked to the window overlooking the street where many of his students lived. He could see apartment buildings that were overcrowded and in poor repair, evidence of the housing shortage that affected so many working families in the area. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked, turning back to face William. "Because you saved my life and I've been lying to you by omission ever since. Those men weren't just desperate criminals. They were desperate because of choices I made that prioritized profit over people." William stood up as well, meeting Marcus's gaze directly. "And because I want to make it right." "What do you mean?" William reached into his gym bag and pulled out a thick folder of documents. "I've been working with my legal team for the past month. I want to restart that housing project, but I need a partner who understands the community and can ensure it actually serves the people it's supposed to help." Marcus opened the folder and saw architectural plans, financial projections, and legal documents that were far beyond his area of expertise. But what struck him most was the scope of what William was proposing. "This is a $50 million project," Marcus said, looking up from the papers. "Closer to 60, actually, when you factor in all the community amenities I want to include. A recreational center, childcare facilities, and yes, a proper martial arts academy." William's eyes held a mixture of hope and determination. "I can provide the capital and business expertise, but I need someone who knows what this community actually needs." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what William was suggesting. "I'm a jiu-jitsu instructor, not a real estate developer. You're a teacher who spent years investing in people that society often ignores. You've shown me what it means to build something meaningful rather than just profitable." William gestured around the modest academy. "Look what you've accomplished here with almost no resources. Imagine what you could do with proper support." The offer was both exciting and terrifying. Marcus had always dreamed of expanding his impact beyond the small confines of his current academy, but he had never imagined anything on this scale. "I need time to think about this," Marcus said finally. "Of course, but Marcus, there's something else you need to know." William's expression grew more serious. "I had my security team investigate those 3 men from the alley. 2 of them found work eventually, but the third one, the leader, he's been struggling. His name is Carlos Mendoza and he has a family, a wife and 2 young children." Marcus recognized the name. Carlos's younger brother had trained at the academy for a brief period before financial pressures forced him to quit. "I want to offer Carlos a job supervising construction on the housing project. Good pay, benefits, and a chance to rebuild something positive in his own community." William paused. "But I wanted your opinion first. You understand people in a way that I'm still learning." As Marcus looked at the plans spread across his desk, he realized that William's proposal represented more than just a business opportunity. It was a chance to transform the lives of hundreds of families, while also addressing the root causes of desperation that had led to their violent encounter in the first place. The decision would change everything, not just for Marcus, but for the entire community that had become his extended family through the academy. 1 year later, Marcus stood on the balcony of the new community center, watching children play in the courtyard below, while their parents attended evening classes in various rooms throughout the building. The Esperanza housing development had exceeded even William's ambitious vision, providing not just affordable homes, but a true community hub that served families throughout East Los Angeles. The Martial Arts Academy occupied the entire second floor of the community center, with professional-grade mats, modern equipment, and space for over 100 students. Marcus had been able to hire 2 additional instructors, including Carlos Mendoza's younger brother Miguel, who had earned his blue belt and showed natural teaching ability. Carlos himself had become the project's construction supervisor and had proven to be an exceptional leader. The man who had once desperately tried to rob William in an alley was now overseeing the construction of additional community facilities, his steady income allowing him to move his family into one of the new housing units. The evening classes are full again, William said, joining Marcus on the balcony. At 63, William looked healthier and more energetic than he had a year ago. His jiu-jitsu training had continued, and he now wore a blue belt around his waist with genuine pride. Hard to believe it's only been a year, Marcus replied, watching a group of teenagers practice techniques on the mats visible through the large windows below. The project had not been without challenges. There had been bureaucratic delays, community skepticism, and moments when Marcus questioned whether he was qualified for such a massive undertaking. But William had proven to be a patient mentor in business matters, while Marcus had guided decisions about community needs and cultural sensitivity. I received some interesting news today, William said, leaning against the balcony railing. The Los Angeles Housing Authority wants to use our model for 3 additional developments across the city. They're offering us a consulting contract worth $12 million over 5 years. Marcus shook his head in amazement. A year ago, I was worried about making rent on a tiny academy. A year ago, I was a wealthy man who thought money was the only measure of success, William replied. You taught me that real wealth comes from investing in people and communities. Below them, the evening jiu-jitsu class was ending. Students bowed to their instructors and began cleaning the mats, a ritual that Marcus had maintained from his original academy. The discipline and respect that jiu-jitsu instilled had become part of the broader community culture at Esperanza. There's something I want to show you, William said, pulling out an official-looking document. I've been working with my lawyers on this for months. Marcus read through the legal language carefully, his eyes widening as he understood what he was seeing. William had established the Rodriguez Ashford Foundation, dedicating $50 million to expanding community-centered housing developments throughout California. Marcus was named as co-director, with full authority over community programming and cultural initiatives. William, this is incredible. But I can't accept this level of responsibility, Marcus protested. You've already proven you can handle it, William replied firmly. Look around you. This entire community exists because you had the courage to step into an alley and help a stranger. Everything that followed grew from that moment of character. As if summoned by their conversation, Carlos Mendoza appeared at the balcony door. He wore a hard hat and work clothes, having just finished his shift supervising the construction of a new playground. Marcus, William, I wanted to thank you both before I head home, Carlos said. My daughter just got accepted to UCLA with a scholarship. She wants to study architecture so she can design communities like this one. After Carlos left, the 2 men stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Los Angeles. The city sprawled endlessly in all directions, filled with millions of people pursuing their own versions of the American dream. You know what the most important thing I learned from jiu-jitsu was? William asked. What's that? That sometimes the strongest position is the one where you're willing to be vulnerable, to admit you don't have all the answers, and to trust someone else to help you up. William smiled. That night in the alley, I thought you saved my life. But really, you saved much more than that. Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them both to this moment. A simple act of helping someone in need had created ripple effects neither of them could have imagined. The community below them buzzed with activity as families gathered for dinner, children played in safe spaces, and adults pursued education and recreation opportunities that had previously been beyond their reach. So what's next? Marcus asked. William grinned, the expression of a man who had found purpose beyond profit. Tomorrow I start white belt training in capoeira. Miguel thinks I need to expand my martial arts horizons. Marcus laughed, imagining the dignified businessman learning the acrobatic Brazilian art form. The mat doesn't lie, remember? The mat doesn't lie, William agreed. And neither do communities built on genuine care for people. As the evening lights began to twinkle across Los Angeles, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that night in the alley. He had learned that sometimes the greatest rewards come not from seeking them, but from simply doing what is right when the moment demands it. The poor black belt who had once struggled to keep a small academy open was now co-directing a foundation that would impact thousands of lives across California.